Not every game needs to be a masterpiece to be worth your time. Some games sit right in that sweet spot. Flawed but fun, rough around the edges but still packed with heart. These are some of the best 7 out of 10 games. The games that might not blow your mind but will absolutely keep you hooked. So, if you're looking for hidden gems, underrated adventures, or just something different to play, here are 10 of the best 7 out of 10 games you should check out. The Callisto Protocol. So the Callisto Protocol, right? It's one of those games that when you first see it, you're like, oh, this is gonna be it. You know, the trailers, the screenshots, the whole vibe, it just screamed next-gen horror. And honestly, visually it delivers. Like stepping into Black Iron Prison, that place is grim. The lighting, the way the shadows play, the sheer level of detail in the environments, it's top tier. You could practically feel the cold, the damp, the sheer rawness of the place. They clearly put a ton of effort into making it feel oppressive, and it works. Now, the combat. They were going for this brutal, visceral thing, and when it clicks, it's pretty satisfying. You're dodging, you're smashing, you're trying to manage resources, and it can be intense. But then you run into those moments where the enemy AI just feels a bit wonky, or the hitboxes are a little off, and it just throws you out of the experience. You get stun locked by some weird tentacle-y thing, and you're just like, seriously? It's not bad, but it's inconsistent, and that's where the 7 out of 10 comes in. Then there's the story. It starts off strong, with this mystery, this sense of dread, and you're genuinely curious to see where it's all going. But as it progresses, it feels like it loses focus. There are some cool twists and turns, some genuinely shocking moments, but the ending feels rushed, like they were setting up for something bigger and then just ran out of time. You're left with a lot of unanswered questions, a lot of what-ifs, and it's a bit disappointing. But here's the thing, despite its flaws, I still enjoyed the Callisto Protocol. It's got that atmosphere, that sense of dread. It's hard to replicate. You're gonna jump, you're gonna be tense, you're gonna be genuinely creeped out, and honestly that's a big part of what makes a good horror game. It's not perfect, it's not gonna blow your mind, but if you're a horror fan, if you're looking for a game that'll give you the chills, it's worth checking out. It's a solid 7 out of 10, a game with rough edges, but one that still manages to deliver a memorable, if imperfect, experience. It's a game you'll remember, even if you remember the frustrating parts as well. Alpha Protocol. Alpha Protocol, a game that even today sparks conversations about what a spy RPG could be. It's a game of bold ambitions, and while it doesn't always stick the landing, it delivers a uniquely engaging experience. At its heart, Alpha Protocol is all about choice. You step into the shoes of Michael Thornton, a spy caught in a web of international conspiracies, but what really makes the game stand out is how much control you have over the story. Your dialogue choices, your actions, everything you do shapes your relationships and the overall narrative. The dialogue system is a highlight, letting you decide not just what you say, but how you say it, whether you play it smooth, aggressive, or professional. And this level of player agency was ahead of its time, and remains impressive even today.
Considering that item.
Of course, Alpha Protocol has its rough edges. The combat, which tries to mix shooting and stealth, can feel a little clunky. The visuals, they've aged, let's say, not gracefully. And yes, there are some bugs and glitches that might break the immersion here and there, but despite all that, the game's strengths outshine its flaws. At the end of the day, Alpha Protocol is a solid 7 out of 10, imperfect but absolutely worth playing. It respects your choices, lets you carve your own path, and tells a gripping, reactive story. It dared to be different, and while it doesn't hit every mark, it's a game that sticks with you. If you can look past some technical hiccups, you'll find a spy RPG that's genuinely one of a kind. It may not be perfect, but it's memorable, and that's what really mattered. The GreedFall. Some games are polished masterpieces, others are so messy, so awkwardly ambitious, that you can't help but love them despite their flaws. GreedFall is exactly that type of game. It's what happens when a smaller studio says, screw it, let's make our own Dragon Age, but with muskets and colonial politics. The result? A fascinating, frustrating, and unexpectedly good RPG that punches way above its weight class. You play as Darksiders, a noble-turned diplomat who's shipped off to the mysterious island of Tyr Frey D, a land filled with warring factions, a deadly deadly plague, and indigenous tribes who can literally summon tree monsters to crush colonizers. Your job? Figure out what the hell is going on, make allies or enemies, and maybe, just maybe, cure the plague before everyone dies a horrible death. Sounds sick, right? Well, it is, but also, it's GreedFall, which means you're getting maximum Euro jank. Let's talk about the combat. It's a mix of swords, magic, and guns, which sounds cool until you realize that most fights devolve into awkward dodging and spamming the same 3 moves. The animations are stiff, enemy AI sometimes just forgets they're in a battle, and the hit detection, yeah, let's just say it's optional. But here's the wild part, it's still fun. Once you get into the flow, learn the mechanics, and start exploiting the jank, it becomes weirdly addicting. And then, there's the world. Tier Freddy is gorgeous in that PS4 era RPG way, with big open landscapes, dense forests, and stunning golden sunsets. But look too closely and you'll start seeing the cracks. Buildings, copied and pasted everywhere. NPCs, stiff, robotic, and usually giving you that 1,000-yard stare. Interiors? Yeah, if you've seen one, you've seen all of them. But somehow, despite all of this, GreedFall just works. The RPG elements are deep, the story is actually great, and the political intrigue makes every decision feel meaningful. You can side with different factions, betray allies, manipulate outcomes. It's got real role-playing depth. And while the dialogue can be cringy at times, it also delivers some genuinely good storytelling moments. It's the kind of game that tries really hard to be a 9 out of 10, but lands at a solid 7 out of 10 with heart. It's messy, it's janky, but if you're into old school BioWare RPGs, GreedFall will absolutely scratch that itch. Just be prepared to embrace the jank. The Mafia 3. Mafia 3 is the definition of a 7 out of 10 game. Brilliant in some ways, frustrating in others, but unforgettable when it really hits its stride. It had all the potential to be a masterpiece, but a mix of repetition and questionable design choices held it back. That being said, if you skip this one, you're missing out on one of the most brutal, cinematic, and atmospheric crime stories ever put in a game. You play as Lincoln Clay, a Vietnam War veteran returning home to New Bordeaux, basically 1960s New Orleans, after years of brutal combat. He's done taking orders, ready to move on, until his family gets absolutely massacred by the Italian mob. What follows is a ruthless, calculated revenge story, where Lincoln doesn't just kill his enemies, he destroys everything they've built piece by piece. And damn, does the game make you feel that vengeance. The storytelling is phenomenal here. It's structured like a true crime documentary with interviews, flashbacks, and FBI footage that give it a HBO-level feel. The voice acting is also perfect. Lincoln Clay is one of the hardest protagonists in gaming, and every character, from his allies to his enemies, feels authentic, especially the terrifying crime boss Sal Marcano, who you despise from the second you meet him. Now let's talk gameplay. This is where the 7 out of 10 rating really starts making sense. Gunplay is actually surprisingly great. Lincoln moves like a trained killer, gunfights are brutal, and the stealth kills are straight up horrifying, and it just feels smooth overall. You'll be slicing throats, bashing skulls, and executing enemies in ways that make John Wick look tame. The driving is also smooth, weighty, and absolutely nails that late 60s muscle car feel. But then you hit the biggest problem, the repetition. Mafia 3 sets up this insanely good story, and then forces you to take over the city by doing the same damn missions over and over. Burn some drug stashes, kill some gangsters, interrogate a snitch, repeat 50 times until you finally get to the good part. It's a game that could have been 10 hours shorter and twice as good. And then there's the open world, which is gorgeous in terms of atmosphere, but dead inside. New Bordeaux looks stunning with its neon-lit jazz clubs, rundown bayous, and old-school diners, but don't expect GTA-level life in the streets. The city is more of a backdrop for the story than a playground. But you know what, despite all of this, Mafia 3 still hits different. The game's brutal, mature, and dripping with 1960s detail. From the racial tensions that affect how cops treat you to the era-accurate soundtrack, when this game is at its best, it feels like a legendary crime film. So, yeah, is it flawed? Absolutely. Does it still deserve your time? Hell yes. If you're in it for the story, the action, and the vibe, Mafia 3 is a 7 out of 10 gem worth every second. Just maybe take breaks when the grind kicks in. The Rage 2. Nobody was really asking for a Rage sequel, but Bethesda said, screw it, let's make a Mad Max meets Doom fever dream, and that's exactly what we got. A game where the story barely matters, the open world is just okay, but oh man, the combat is absolute crap. You play as Walker, the last ranger of Vineland, cool title, doesn't really mean much, taking down some evil authority or whatever. Honestly, the plot is just an excuse to unleash hell. Every weapon and power in this game makes you feel like an unstoppable force of destruction. The combat shotgun turns enemies into mist. The grav dart launcher lets you yeet people into walls, and overdrive mode cranks everything up to 11, making you even faster, deadlier, and more bad. It's like someone took Doom 2016, injected it with adrenaline, and let the Just Cause devs go wild. Now, the open world, yeah, that's where the 7 out of 10 energy kicks in. It looks amazing with neon-soaked deserts and Mad Max-style outposts, but it's kind of empty. There's not a whole lot to do outside of driving from one chaotic fight to the next. The story barely exists. The characters, forgettable. The game literally ends so abruptly, it feels like someone unplugged your PC mid-cutscene. But none of that really matters, because Rage 2 isn't trying to be deep. It just wants you to blow stuff up in the most stylish way possible, and in that aspect, it absolutely delivers. If you want depth, look elsewhere, but if you're down for some mindless, high-energy, ridiculously fun destruction, this is your game. Far Cry Primal. At some point, Ubisoft must have sat down and thought, what if we took Far Cry, removed the guns, threw in some cabmen, and let people fight saber-toothed tigers with sticks? And honestly, it kinda worked. Far Cry Primal ditches the usual modern warfare for a brutal, prehistoric open world set in 10,000 BC, where you play as Takar, a hunter trying to survive in a world full of hostile tribes, deadly beasts, and an overwhelming amount of grunting and caveman noises. There's no English dialogue here, just a made-up primitive language that actually sells the immersion pretty well. At first, you're just a dude with a club and a spear, running from everything that moves, but as you progress, you go from hunted to hunter, taming wild animals, crafting better weapons, and eventually leading your own tribe. The highlight? Beastmaster skills, which let you tame and command wolves, bears, and even a goddamn saber-toothed tiger. If you've ever wanted to sick a giant prehistoric cat on your enemies while riding a mammoth into battle, this game delivers on that exact fantasy. The world of Oros is stunning. Lush forests, icy caves, and vast plains filled with animals that all want to kill you. But, as good as the setting is, the classic Far Cry structure still weighs it down. You're capturing outposts again, gathering resources again, and dealing with a villain that doesn't hold a candle to Voss or Pagan Min. The story is fine, but you're really here for the immersive, prehistoric survival vibes. Some people bounced off this one because of the lack of guns and vehicles, but if you're willing to embrace the smack people with a club and tame a bear lifestyle, it's a damn good time. It's not the best Far Cry, but it's definitely one of the most unique. And Shadow Warrior 3. If Doom and Bulletstorm had a weird, hyperactive baby that wouldn't shut the hell up, it would be Shadow Warrior 3. This game doesn't waste time pretending to be deep, it throws you straight into non-stop, high-speed, over-the-top action, where the only rule is to kill everything in the flashiest way possible. You play as Lo Wang, yes, that's really his name, a wisecracking, sword-swinging mercenary who somehow managed to screw up so badly that he let a giant world-ending dragon loose. Now, he has to fix it the only way he knows how, by slaughtering everything in his path with an insane arsenal of guns, a katana that can slice enemies in half, and movement mechanics that make sure you're never standing still. The gameplay is pure adrenaline-fueled chaos. It's all about chaining together wall runs, air dashes, grappling hook swings, and brutal finishers, turning every fight into a violent ballet of destruction. The gunplay is tight, the melee combat is satisfying, and the game constantly throws new enemy types at you to keep things fresh. Oh, and the gore weapons system, absolute insanity. You can rip out an enemy's spine and use it as a weapon. Visually, it's a colorful, over-the-top spectacle with massive Asian-inspired levels packed with bright neon lights, floating temples, and way too many exploding barrels. The story? Yeah, it exists, but let's be real, you're here for the dumb jokes and insane action. If you want a game that doesn't take itself seriously for even a second, but still delivers some of the most fun FPS combat in recent years, Shadow Warrior 3 is exactly what you need. It may not be perfect, and it definitely doesn't reinvent the wheel, but sometimes you just want to to slice demons in half while cracking bad one-liners, and this game absolutely nails that. The Elex 2. So, you're back in Magaland. Years after the events of the first Elex, you're still playing as Jax, and this time, you're facing a new threat. Sky Invaders. The world is a post-apocalyptic mishmash of fantasy and sci-fi, and it's as weird and wonderful as ever. You've got factions, you've got mutants, you've got magic, you've got jetpacks. It's a lot to take in, and that's part of the charm of Elex 2. It's unapologetically dense. There's so much to explore, so many quests to tackle, and so many factions to align with. The world is huge and it's packed with secrets. The jetpack in particular is a game changer, allowing you to explore the world in a way that feels genuinely liberating. Now here's the thing, Piranha Bytes games are known for being janky. Elex 2 is no exception. The combat can be clunky, the animations are a bit stiff, and the dialogue can be a bit wooden. But, and this is a crucial but, it has a certain charm. It's a game that doesn't hold your hand. It throws you into the deep end and expects you to figure things out. And when you do, it's incredibly rewarding. The faction system is a highlight. Choosing who to side with has significant consequences, shaping the story and your character's abilities, and the world itself is a joy to explore. You'll stumble upon hidden locations, discover powerful loot, and encounter memorable characters. So why a 7 out of 10? Because Elex 2 is a game that's greater than the sum of its parts. It's a game that has flaws, but it also has a unique identity. It's a game that rewards exploration and experimentation. It's a game that's not afraid to be weird. If you're a fan of Piranha Bytes' previous work, or if you're looking for a challenging and rewarding open world RPG, Elex 2 is worth checking out. It has a very niche audience, but that niche audience will have a grand time. The Biomutant. When I first saw the trailers, I was hyped, like, furry little kung fu dude in a crazy overgrown world, sign me up. And honestly, when you first boot it up, it's gorgeous. Like, seriously, the art style is something else. It's like someone took a bunch of watercolors and just splashed them all over a post-apocalyptic landscape. You just want to wander around and take screenshots, and the whole idea of customizing your mutant, crafting weapons, learning martial arts, it's cool. You feel like you're building your own little badass, and this is where it gets a bit meh. After a while, you realize you're basically doing the same thing over and over. You go to a camp, you beat up some dudes, you loot some stuff, repeat. It gets a bit grindy, you know? And the narrator? Dude, I know they were going for that storybook vibe, but it just got annoying after a while. Like, I'm trying to explore this cool world, and he's constantly in my ear telling me what's going on. I get it, just let me play. But, you know, despite all that, I still kind of liked it. It's a really chill game. Like, you can just zone out and explore, and it's pretty relaxing, and the world is just so damn pretty. It's one of those games that's perfect for just kicking back and unwinding. It's not perfect, not even close, but it's got a certain charm, you know? It's like that quirky indie movie that you know isn't a masterpiece, but you still enjoy watching. It's a 7 out of 10. A game that's got its flaws, but it's still worth checking out if you're looking for something different. It's a nice game to get lost in for a few hours. Robocop Rogue City. If you grew up watching Robocop and always wanted to step into the metal boots of Detroit's most badass cyborg, Rogue City delivers exactly that. And even if you didn't, this game still offers something rare. A slow, methodical, and absolutely brutal FPS experience that makes you feel like an unstoppable tank. Unlike the twitchy, hyper-fast shooters that dominate today's market, Robocop Rogue City slows things down and leans into the sheer weight and power of playing as Robocop. You're not some fragile soldier hiding behind cover, you're a walking fortress, casually absorbing bullets as you stomp through crime-infested streets, throwing thugs through walls and blasting bad guys into red mist with your iconic Auto 9 pistol. And let's talk about that gun. It never runs out of ammo and tears enemies apart with every shot. It's easily one of the most satisfying weapons in any shooter, and the sound design makes every pull of the trigger feel like justice being served. Add in the ability to pick up and throw enemies, scan crime scenes like a detective, and dish out brutal finishers, and you've got an FPS experience that feels truly unique. But Rogue City isn't just mindless shooting, it actually captures the dark, satirical tone of the original films. You'll handle side cases, interact with civilians, and make decisions that impact the story, all while the game throws in hilarious, over-the-top news broadcasts and fake commercials straight out of a dystopian 80s fever dream. Sure, it's got janky animations and some stiff dialogue, but that's part of the charm. It fully embraces the Robocop aesthetic, cheesy, violent, and oddly compelling. If you're looking for a shooter that makes you feel like an absolute tank while staying true to an iconic franchise, this is a 7 out of 10 gem that punches way above its weight. Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning. If Skyrim and Fable had a weird forgotten cousin that deserved way more love, it would be Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning. This game dropped in 2012 and instantly got overshadowed by the biggest RPGs of that era, but those who actually played it know it's one of the most satisfying action RPGs ever made. First off, the combat is ridiculously fun. While most RPGs from that time had stiff, weightless fighting, Amalur went all in on fluid, fast-paced action that actually felt good. It's like an arcade-style brawler mixed with deep RPG mechanics, letting you seamlessly switch between melee, magic, and ranged attacks. You could cast spells, parry attacks, teleport behind enemies, and pull off cinematic finishers, making every fight feel like something out of an anime. The world itself is massive, filled with lore written by R.A. Salvatore, a guy who's written a ton of legendary fantasy novels, and backed by a gorgeous, colorful art style that still holds up today. It's a classic high fantasy setting, but with a unique twist on fate and destiny, where your character isn't just some chosen one, you're someone who literally broke free from fate and can rewrite reality. There's also an insane amount of weapons, armor, and abilities to mess around with. The game doesn't lock you into a single class. If you get bored of being a warrior, you can respec at any time and become a stealthy rogue or a god-tier battle mage. It's pure power fantasy at its best. So why is it only a 7 out of 10? Well, the open world feels a bit empty, the story is decent but nothing groundbreaking, and some of the MMO-style side quests can get repetitive. Plus, the game's launch was a mess. It was meant to kickstart an entire universe of games, but the studio went bankrupt, leaving it as a one-and-done cult classic. But if you love RPGs and never gave this one a shot, it's absolutely worth playing. The Re-Reckoning remaster makes it easier to experience on modern systems, and honestly, even with its flaws, Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning is still one of the most enjoyable action RPGs out there. Remember Me. There's something poetic about a game called Remember Me being completely forgotten by most people. Released in 2013, this was the first game from Don't Nod Entertainment, the same studio that would go on to make Life is Strange. But while Life is Strange became a cult hit, Remember Me was dead on arrival, buried under a pile of mixed reviews and overshadowed by bigger releases. Which is a shame, because even with its flaws, it had something special. Set in a futuristic Neo-Paris, Remember Me throws you into a world where people's memories are digitized, bought, sold, and even erased. You play as Nilin, a badass memory hunter who's had her own past wiped clean by the very corporation she used to work for. So now, she's on a mission to take them down, piece together her past, and unravel the dark secrets behind memory control. If you love cyberpunk settings, this game absolutely nails the atmosphere. Rainy, neon-lit streets, sleek dystopian tech, and a world that feels like a mix between Blade Runner and Deus Ex. But the real star of Remember Me is its memory remixing mechanic, which is one of the most underrated gameplay ideas ever. At key moments in the story, you dive into a character's mind and alter their memories, changing their entire perception of reality. You might tweak small details, knocking over a bottle, moving a gun, until you completely rewrite history in their head. This leads to some insane narrative twists, and honestly, it's one of those mechanics that should have been explored in more games. The combat though, that's where Remember Me stumbles. It tries to combine Arkham-style free-flow combat with a combo customization system, letting you craft your own attack strings with different effects. Some restore health, some deal extra damage, etc. Cool in theory, but in execution, it feels stiff and clunky, lacking the fluidity of the games it's inspired by. Add to that some forgettable platforming sections and a linear structure that doesn't make full use of its world, and you can see why it never reached its full potential. That said, Remember Me isn't just another generic cyberpunk game. It's a bold, creative experience that deserved more love. The story has that Dontnod charm with deep emotional beats and a protagonist you actually care about. The world feels alive, the soundtrack is amazing, and even with its flaws, it's one of those games that sticks with you long after you're done. It's not a perfect game, and yeah, it's probably a 7 out of 10, but it's a damn interesting one, and sometimes that's even better. Darksiders 3. Every game in the series has been solid, yet Darksiders 3 somehow got the worst reception of the bunch, and while it's far from perfect, there's something about it that makes it worth playing. Especially if you have a soft spot for hack-and-slash action, Metroidvania exploration, and apocalyptic storytelling. This time you play as Fury, the third horseman or horsewoman of the apocalypse. She's nothing like War or Death. She's reckless, arrogant, and has a major anger management problem. Her mission? Hunt down the 7 deadly sins who've escaped their imprisonment and are wreaking havoc on an already ruined Earth. From the grotesque bloated sloth to the terrifying monstrous wrath, each sin is designed to embody their nature, and taking them down makes for some of the best boss fights in the game. But Darksiders 3 took a huge risk by shifting away from the God of War / Zelda style gameplay of the first 2 games and embracing a Souls-like combat system. That means dodge-based battles, slower attacks, and enemies that can kill you in just a few hits. This change completely divided fans. Some loved the challenge, while others felt it took away what made Darksiders unique. It doesn't help that the combat feels a bit stiff at times, making certain fights frustrating rather than fun. What Darksiders 3 does get right is its world design. The game plays out in a semi-open, interconnected world where new abilities unlock new paths, just like a Metroidvania. One moment you're exploring fiery caverns, the next you're wading through a flooded city, and then you're in a twisted, corrupted church filled with Lovecraftian horrors. It's a gorgeous but desolate world, and uncovering its secrets is one of the most satisfying parts of the game. Unfortunately, the game launched with tons of technical issues, from frame drops and crashes to janky animations, which hurt its reputation. It's been patched since then, but the damage was done. Still, if you're a fan of the Darksiders universe, Darksiders 3 is worth another shot. It's different, it's flawed, but it's still a good time, just not quite as legendary as the first 2 games. Alice Madness Returns. There are a lot of dark and gritty reimaginings of classic stories, but Alice Madness Returns might be one of the best and most overlooked. This is not the Wonderland you remember from childhood. It's broken, nightmarish, and soaked in blood, trauma, and insanity. You play as Alice Liddell, a girl who barely survived a fire that killed her entire family. Now she's trapped between the real world, where she's struggling with severe mental illness, and Wonderland, which is falling apart as her mind does. The only way to fix it? Slashing and hacking your way through the madness? And the combat? It's weirdly awesome. Alice fights with a Vorpal blade, a deadly knife that slices through enemies in fast, ballet-like motions. She also gets a hobby horse, a brutal hammer, a teapot cannon, and even explosive clockwork rabbits. The gameplay blends hack-and-slash combat with platforming, and while it's not the tightest combat system ever, it's fun, creative, and visually stunning. But the real star of the game is its art direction. Every part of Wonderland feels like a twisted fever dream, shifting from gothic castles and steampunk cities to underwater ruins and hellish dollhouses. It's dripping with creepy atmosphere, filled with unsettling characters like the Cheshire Cat, who now looks like something out of Silent Hill, and the Mad Hatter, whose mind has literally been shattered. However, the game does have some flaws. The platforming can feel clunky, some levels drag on too long, and the story, while disturbing and emotional, sometimes feels like it loses momentum. It's the kind of game that's more about the experience than the mechanics. Despite its flaws, Alice Madness Returns is a cult classic. It's the perfect game if you love dark, psychological stories with unique worlds, and honestly it deserved a sequel, but since EA holds the rights to it, that's probably never happening. So if you haven't played this one yet, now's the time before it vanishes into gaming obscurity forever. Mass Effect Andromeda. Man, that game, it's like a complicated relationship, you know? It had so much potential being a Mass Effect game and all, but it just didn't quite stick the landing. So you're exploring a whole new galaxy, Andromeda, new planets, new aliens, new everything. The visuals, when they work, are stunning. Some of those planets are just breathtaking, and the idea of being a pathfinder, discovering new worlds, it's a cool concept. You get to explore these huge open worlds, drive around in the Nomad, meet all these new characters. Some of them are genuinely interesting, and the combat is actually pretty fun. The biotic abilities, the weapon customization, it's all solid. But then there's the issues. The facial animations, those were rough. Like meme level rough. It's distracting, and the story, it just doesn't have that same punch as the original trilogy. It feels a bit aimless at times. The open worlds, while beautiful, can feel empty. You're driving around for ages just doing fetch quests, and the whole Pathfinder thing, it doesn't quite live up to the hype. It feels more like you're just doing chores than exploring a new galaxy. Finally, there's the lack of Shepard and his crew, but honestly, how else would you make another entry in this franchise? His story is over. Setting it all in Andromeda, away from the Reapers and all of the previous characters, seems like the only way to avoid contradicting previous lore, especially given the ending choices of ME3. Overall, I thought Mass Effect Andromeda was a fitting Mass Effect title, hot take, but it may even be my favorite individual game in the series. Sure, the trilogy taken as a whole cannot be topped, but it honestly improves on nearly every individual mechanic of the original series, with some key exceptions being level design and pacing. It's a weird one. It's a game that's got its flaws, big flaws, but it's also got its moments of brilliance. It's a 7 out of 10. It's worth playing if you're a Mass Effect fan, but don't expect it to live up to the originals. Go in with tempered expectations and you might find something you enjoy. Castlevania Lords of Shadow. Castlevania Lords of Shadow is one of the most divisive games in the series, but it's also one of the most ambitious. Instead of sticking to the usual Metroidvania formula, Konami and Mercury Steam threw a curveball. A full-blown cinematic action adventure with a deep, tragic story, brutal combat, and some of the best boss fights in the Castlevania series. You play as Gabriel Belmont, a brooding warrior on a mission to resurrect his dead wife. This quest takes him across a dark, gothic world filled with lycans, vampires, and demonic creatures, all standing between him and the truth. The game's story, narrated by Patrick Stewart's godlike voice, unfolds like an epic tragedy, leading to one of the wildest twists in Castlevania history. Gameplay-wise, Lords of Shadow is basically what if Castlevania was directed by Guillermo del Toro and played like God of War. Gabriel wields the Combat Cross, a chain whip that works like Kratos' Blades of Chaos, letting you unleash massive combos, juggle enemies, and perform brutal finishers. The game also features light and dark magic, which lets you heal or deal extra damage mid-fight, adding a layer of strategy. And the boss fights, insane. Some of them feel straight out of Shadow of the Colossus, where you have to climb towering titans and take them down piece by piece, while others pit you against vampire queens, monstrous necromancers, and legendary Castlevania creatures. But Lords of Shadow isn't perfect. Some sections drag on too long, the pacing can be uneven, and longtime Castlevania fans weren't happy that it played nothing like the old games. That said, if you go in expecting a dark fantasy epic with God of War style combat and an insane story, you'll probably love it. And if you somehow make it to the post-credits scene, you're in for one of the best plot twists in gaming history. The Outer Worlds. If you've ever wished for a Fallout-style RPG set in space, The Outer Worlds is exactly that, but with a bit more humor, a bit more charm, and a lot more corporate satire. Developed by Obsidian Entertainment, the same studio behind Fallout New Vegas, this game brings their signature choice-driven storytelling, witty dialogue, and morally gray decisions to a sci-fi setting full of corrupt megacorporations and rebellious misfits. You play as a colonist who wakes up decades late from cryo-sleep only to find yourself in the Halcyon system, a place where corporations own everything, including people. From the very start, The Outer Worlds lets you decide what kind of character you want to be. You can be a charming smooth talker, a brilliant scientist, or even a complete idiot who barely understands what's happening. Yes, there's an actual dumb dialogue option. The world itself is a mix of retro-futuristic tech, neon-lit cities, and alien landscapes, giving it a unique vibe that feels like a mix between Firefly and Bioshock. Each planet and settlement is packed with NPCs who have their own stories, factions with their own agendas, and quests that can be completed in multiple ways. You can be a hero, a corporate sellout, or even betray everyone just for the fun of it. combat is solid, but nothing groundbreaking. You get a mix of guns, melee weapons, and tactical time dilation, basically VATS but real time, to slow down fights and target enemy weak spots. The real fun though comes from your companions, each with their own backstories, side quests, and hilarious banter. If there's one downside, it's that the Outer Worlds never quite reaches the depth of New Vegas. NPCs are glued to the ground like in Morrowind. Outer Worlds, released in 2019, is outperformed by Oblivion, released in 2003. The worlds feel a little small, and the choices, while interesting, don't always lead to drastically different outcomes. Still, if you love quirky RPGs with sharp writing, freedom to roleplay, and a solid dose of satire, this is an underrated gem worth playing. The Sinking City. The Sinking City. Man, that game. It's like a Lovecraftian fever dream, you know? You're dropped into this decaying city, Oakmont, and it's just off. Everything's just a little bit wrong. So you play as Charles Reed, a private investigator with a knack for the supernatural. You're trying to figure out what's going on in Oakmont, why the city's sinking, why everyone's going crazy. The atmosphere is thick, man. It's like walking through a fog of dread. The visuals, while not exactly cutting edge, capture that eerie, unsettling vibe perfectly. The investigation system is pretty cool. You're gathering clues, piecing together evidence, and making deductions. It's not just about following waypoints, you actually have to use your brain. And the sanity system, that adds a whole layer of tension. You never know when you're gonna start seeing things that aren't there. But it's got its, let's say, quirks. The combat is clunky, it's not the game's strong suit, and the open world, while atmospheric, can feel a bit empty at times. You're walking through these deserted streets and it can get a bit monotonous. And it can be buggy. It's not the most polished game out there. You might run into some glitches, some weird AI behavior. Still, The Sinking City is a unique experience. It's a game that nails the Lovecraftian atmosphere. It's a game that makes you think, that makes you question what's real. It's a 7 out of 10. It's worth playing if you're a fan of Lovecraftian horror, if you enjoy detective games, or if you're just looking for something different. It's a game that'll stick with you, even if it's not perfect. It's a game that gets under your skin. Ghostwire Tokyo. Now, that's a trip. It's like someone took a classic Japanese ghost story, mixed it with some first-person action, and set it in a hyper-realistic, neon-drenched Tokyo. It's a vibe, man. So, you're Akito, and you're suddenly thrust into this supernatural version of Tokyo, where everyone's vanished, and these creepy visitors are roaming the streets. You team up with KK, a spirit who's basically living in your head, and you're on a mission to figure out what's going on. The visuals are stunning. Tokyo is rendered in incredible detail, and the supernatural elements are just wild. The visitors are designed with all sorts of creepy folklore influences, and the way they move and attack is just unsettling. The combat is unique too. You're using these elemental powers, weaving hand gestures, and it feels really satisfying when you get into a rhythm. The atmosphere is thick. The city is eerily quiet, save for the visitors and the occasional spirit you can help. You're exploring these empty streets, finding hidden shrines, and uncovering the secrets of the city. It's a really immersive experience. But it's not all sunshine and yokai. The open world, while beautiful, can feel a bit empty. You're often running from point A to point B, clearing out visitors, and the side quests, while interesting, can get repetitive. And the story, while intriguing, can feel a bit disjointed at times. It's got some cool moments, but it doesn't always flow smoothly. Still, Ghostwire Tokyo is a unique game. It's a visual feast, and the combat is genuinely fun. It's a 7 out of 10. It's worth playing if you're a fan of Japanese folklore, if you enjoy atmospheric games, or if you're just looking for something different. It's a game that'll give you some chills, and it's a game that'll leave you wanting to explore every corner of its hauntingly beautiful Tokyo.